Today is Tuesday, May 3rd, and today was back squats and overhead press as usual. With these back squats, a little bit of a pivot, or very slight pivot from the last 3 weeks where I've been doing 3 sets of 4 at RPE 7. Now for the 3 weeks out, or this is like the third week out, and for this week and next week we are hitting 3 triples at RPE 8. And so for this week, I aimed for 160, which is ended up being quite a bit of a jump from last week, where I hit 152 for 3 sets of 4, and this week 160 with 3 sets of 3. I was overall pretty happy with it. It was definitely the heaviest squats I've done since my injury. My technique with my back squat, I feel like, has come a long way since. Even before I was injured, just because I've had so many opportunities to just work on light technique work with the squats, obviously limiting the load for my lower back. I think that really showed today. So this was the first set at 160, and it was hard. It was difficult. These weren't moving super fast or anything. Maybe a little bit under RP 8, but despite it being hard and it moving slowly, my technique held up pretty well. I wasn't majorly changing anything about the way I move. This second set, I think I put my feet out a little bit wider than I had intended, because you can kind of see that there is a bit of a knee cave, and then I have to sort of adjust by pushing out. It's still there slightly, but I think when I set my feet apart a little bit too wide, that's the sort of tendency that tends to happen. Yeah. Whereas when I get my feet kind of in the right position, there is a little bit less room for them to cave inwards, and so I can more easily keep them sort of locked in the same place in terms of my knees and their position in the horizontal plane, if that makes any sense. They were difficult. Obviously, RPE 8 is not meant to be easy anyways, so that's kind of the point. And I got some solid work in, and I was able to maintain pretty solid technique. So, pretty solid back squat work. Moved on to overhead press. And overhead press did not go as well as I had hoped, which honestly is fine, because overhead press is in my head kind of the least important out of the quote unquote primary-esque work, my primary-esque work being the back squat or front squats or clean and jerks or snatch or any variation of those. Those I kind of see as the primary work, and then in that group, overhead press is kind of at the bottom. And so here, I attempted 76, didn't get it, attempted 75, didn't get it, and then finally bumped down to 74, and then barely eked it out. The reason I went for 76 was because, I guess, in terms of just purely numbers, it made sense in my head, because last week I hit a double at 73. But I think what I sort of maybe failed to remember, or take into account at least, is that the first rep is always much harder than the second. And I feel like if I can get a first rep in without dying, I can almost always get a second rep in. And so remembering 73 from last week, 73, the first rep was quite difficult. And so given that, I should have been conservative with the jump instead of just jumping to the conclusion of 73 for a double, I should be able to hit 76. But I mean, it is what it is. I ended up getting a top single and then did some back off work and got the work in. So that's all that really matters, I think. And then did some accessories and then called it a day.